On today's episode of Tuesday Talks with Opie, I sit down with brilliant minds Veeshan Narinesingh and Tracy Edwards. We discuss how we can introduce a love of science to more Black and Brown students and inspire a pursuit in science as a career. Join us for today's conversation. Everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tuesday Talks with Opie. Today, my guests are Veeshan Narinesingh and Tracy Edwards. Thank you both for joining me today on today's Tuesday Talk.
Of course, thanks for having us.
Glad to be here.
So I have you both here today because one of an interesting topic to me is the sciences. While I'm not into the sciences, I do believe that it is an essential part of society. And one thing that's lacking is the involvement of more Black and Brown people, not only loving the sciences, but actually getting involved career-wise and, being at the forefront of it. And both of you are pursuing your PhDs in physics, and that is not an easy feat for anyone. So I am, again, so grateful that you both took your time to be on the show with me today. Now, Veeshan, I've known you since middle school, and Tracy, I have the pleasure of knowing you through Veeshan. What got you both involved? Like, what inspired the love in sciences, Tracy? What got you involved in sciences?
So I'm going to start with the stereotypical high school teacher was super awesome. I think so. I actually used to live in Texas for a bit, and I moved back to Missouri. And so there the curriculums were opposite. So I have physics my last 2 years of high school with the same teacher, and she was Miss Camarato. I love her to death, and it was her passion for it that made me actually interested in it. And luckily enough, I had the opportunity to have a mentor by another Black woman. Her name is now Dr. Jessica Miller. She's a MD PhD. And so she allowed me to shadow her at the local university during her PhD trainings and whatnot. So I got to watch hands-on what a scientist looks like, what they do. And she was also the only Black female in her cohort too. So it was really the hands-on experience and mentorship by someone who looked like me that got me interested in the sciences.
Wow. How about you, V?
That's amazing, Tracy. I didn't know that. That's dope, yo. I love that. Um, yeah, I think you probably for me, like ever since I was a little kid, I don't know, used to watch all those shows about like the universe and like black holes and galaxies and solar systems. So I kind of got interested in that probably from like, and just like, living upstate and like looking up at the stars and seeing how clear it was, like it always made me wonder. And my mom was always super nurturing of it. So she would take me to little places when I was a kid and like, buy me books, buy me little like science encyclopedias. And yeah, I think definitely my mom was very influential in terms of nurturing that and just like, putting me on that path. So for me, it was something like that. It's interesting that it's very different for Tracy, but it shows that, it's not just one mode that people get interested in science in.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very interesting that you actually had a mentor at such a young age to actually show you the path, because not a lot of people have that opportunity. Do you think it was your school system, how it was set up, that allowed you to do that? Did you have people of color as teachers growing up?
Ooh, no. I mean, now that I think about it, no.
Okay.
You grew up in the suburbs, Tracy?
I did. I'm a suburb kid. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm a suburb kid. So Miss Kimberano, she's actually a white lady. And so but I went to a predominantly Black high school junior senior year, but all my teachers were all white. Now that I think about it. Interesting. Anywho, so at my school, they had a co-op program where students could go work for like as class credit. And at school, which is pretty awesome. So my school allowed me to my like shadowing at the university to count as like credit for a co-op position for like my credits or requirements or whatever. I forget now, it's like some years ago. So I think it was that system and the connection from my teacher to my mentor that gave me the opportunity to go do it. So I guess it's a bit of both, I would say.
Right. I think growing up, there were probably some science or different departments, like summer programs in our school. But I don't remember specifically having any connections like that. Do you know of that, Veeshan? Was there any type of program that you got involved with in high school, or did you find like your ability to be more into sciences after leaving high school?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, first off, I want to say that we had the opportunity to go to a really good school. We just only went to one school district up there, so we didn't realize that at the time. But like after working in the city and working with schools there, like I think we didn't realize how good we had it. Like a lot of opportunities, just the chance to take college courses, to be exposed to that, the chance to play sports, right? Have a baseball field you have access to, soccer field, run track, right? Remember we used to run track. We used to run all throughout the town and like be able to run through a safe town. Like we had a lot of privilege going to school there. I don't think like in terms of like nurturing careers in science, I don't think they did much for that, but they did have really good course offerings for science and really good teachers. I remember Mr. Harrison really stood out to me because he was the track coach also for chemistry, and I had him for 2 years because I took the advanced chemistry, and he was just always cool, and I knew him from being a track coach, and I did well in his class and he was very encouraging, but there was opportunities there. But I think like in terms of like really exposing us to careers in science, besides like the academic side of it, where you need to know some knowledge and pass some regents, I don't think we got much of that. It's kind of a shame, but I don't think back then that the district was really woke to that to begin with.
Yeah, I think now probably they're working towards that. I think they have an academy or something in the sciences, as well as an engineering that they've introduced since we've left, which is again a long time ago now. One of the things that I found interesting, you said that Tracy, that you were most of your teachers in high school were white, but you went to an HBCU for your undergrad. So how was that cultural difference for you? And then now you're back to a predominantly white institution. So how is that cultural change in learning and also in just interacting with other students been for you?
First of all, so I went to Hampton University, HBCU. I credit going to the HBCU for molding me into who I am right now. So it's like, I think doing that is probably one of the best decisions I've ever made for myself, just like personal growth and science exposure. And so now being back at a PWI with all white colleagues, all white students and professors, I have a level of like self-awareness and self-confidence that I might not have had I not gone to the HBCU. So I say the transition has been interesting. I will admit that it's definitely a culture shock, but I definitely would credit going to Hampton for my ability to be successful in this white space.
That's important. Have you felt, I don't even know how to describe the word, in a sense, like imposter syndrome? Do you deal with that in being in a space where, like you said, there's not a lot of people that look like you there?
Oh, of course. How do I speak to that? I deal with imposter syndrome probably every day. I think every day I'm constantly questioning, well, I mean, it's a PhD program, right? So it's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be like mind stretching, right? So it's like every day I'm questioning, well, am I smart enough? Did I really get in because I'm smart or because I'm Black? Like, I think I always have that question. And so I don't want to answer this, sorry. It's something I do deal with, but I try not to let it take control of me because again, I'm here for a reason and a purpose. And so it's like, I don't want it to limit me in any kind of way. It's like, okay, the thoughts creep in. I feel my feelings, like I work the feelings, and then I say, okay, I have a job to do. We have to move past this today. We'll do it again tomorrow. So it's kind of how I try to work through that imposter syndrome that I do experience.
How about you, V? Have you ever had that? Have you ever experienced that yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's very interesting. Because Tracy's in the beginning of her PhD and I'm towards the end of mine, right?
Right.
So it's a totally different perspective. So yeah, I really remember feeling that way in a PhD program, in an undergraduate program, just like being in class and looking at my professors and seeing them and not being able to identify with them. They just seem like these really like brilliant kind of ethereal beings that I'll never be able to be like. But and then even that persisted into my PhD. So it was like, okay, I can get through this and I can get into a PhD program, and that's great. But now that I'm in a PhD program, I'm seeing all the colleagues and all the people like around me that are totally different from me. It made me feel, even in that sense, do I even belong in this space? I remember going to conferences and like having to give a talk and freaking out a little bit before, you know, and like, I can't be as smart as these dudes. Or even last year, I had to give a talk at MIT. I got invited to give a talk at MIT, which is a great thing. That must mean that I'm smart or something,
Right.
right? So I go to give that talk, but just like interacting with the people there, um, and just like, like, am I dumb? Like, I'm just like comparing myself to everybody and thinking about like, am I as smart as these people? Do I know how to code in Julia? Do I know this? Do I know that? Like, um, and feeling really bad about it. But then I don't know, eventually, I guess sometime recently, I just realized that first off, nobody really knows anything. Like they can pretend like they understand, for example, the weather and atmospheric dynamics, which is what I study in climate, but nobody really understands that because it's super complicated. And the same goes with like quantum mechanics. So you can't really like, talk down to someone in that sense, right? So nobody's necessarily better than anyone in terms of that. And I think also like, I might not be the best person at numerical computational mathematics or mathematical modeling of weather models, but I have other qualities that I bring to the table. It's not all about like solving math equations or how good you are at coding or how good you are at building experiments. It's about everything else you bring to the table. Are you an empathetic person that brings livelihood to the group? Do you bring the mood up of everybody around you? That's an important thing to have in a workspace. Are you a leader? Are you a good speaker? Are you a good communicator? You can be the best person at math, but be poor at communication, right? So you need people of all kinds of skills in your team. And I think once I realized that, then it's just like, I'm gonna just be me. I don't care. I know I'm smart. I know that's it. And that's how I feel about Tracy. Tracy's dope. Like I've watched her struggle with this a little bit. And I know feeling that same way, but I believe in her 1,000%. And it's just like a normal feeling, but you can do
Right.
anything.
And in the field that you're both in, would you say it's a collaborative effort? You mentioned teamwork. Like it's not just kind of like you're on your own. You have to work with other people and realize each other's strength to work together because you're trying to come up with the same solution or understand the same thing. So it has to be more of a collaborative effort.
I think it should be. So, like, for example, I just did my first year of grad school, survived it, woohoo. So, like, for classes, like, you can't work alone. Like, you have to work with somebody because it's designed to be collaborative with homework and studying all that kind of stuff, right? But then you have like lab cultures, so the actual lab you work in, where some labs aren't collaborative. Some of them are like head in the sand, very competitive, like I'm trying to outwork anybody else here. And there's some labs who are like all hands on deck on one thing until we all see together. So honestly, it kind of depends on the environment you're in, from what my experience has been so far.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely for classes, like wouldn't have been able to get through it without my homies in the class, working on problems together, studying together, doing all that. And metacognitively thinking about it, like, yeah, it's like Tracy said, it's designed in that way to help you build those skills and those abilities and being comfortable in that kind of environment. And yeah, with the lab culture, it's exactly as she said, some people work by themselves because of that's how their lab is structured. And then in my case, for example, our lab is super collaborative. We have a group meeting every week or every 2 weeks, or some of us might work on projects together. So I just submitted a paper with with another PhD student in my lab that I work in, and our faculty advisor, Professor Jimmy Booth, and it's about storm surge in New York City. So she specializes in precipitation, and I specialize in atmospheric blocking, which helps to guide the precipitation. So yeah, definitely. I think it depends on where you're at. But in general, like the skills of working in a team are translatable across like almost any field.
Absolutely, that's true. Teamwork is important for a lot of a lot of things to actually become what you need them to be. Tracy, so tell us a little bit more about the program that you're doing. What is your focus? What do you hope to accomplish with your PhD program?
Okay, so I'm a graduate student at Michigan State University. I'm in their nuclear physics program, so that's kind of what I study, but my research lab group is in radiochemistry. So I'm actually the only physics student in a lab of like 16 chemists. So it's definitely been an interesting experience, but I absolutely love it so far. So it's like I do what's called isotope harvesting. So I'm interested in a certain isotope called isotope-211. It's shown to be a great real therapeutic for cancer treatment plans and for patients. The only issue is it has a very short half-life, which means that it dies very quickly. And so it's hard to mass produce it and ship it out to hospitals, and the access to it is not very large. So it's like our lab is interested in figuring out how to like produce this in greater amounts and kind of make it more accessible for hospitals and patients to use in a nutshell. So that's kind of what I study. But on a personal note, like more career-wise, I'm interested in like science policy work. So it's like I have my science, then I have like career. I would love to go into government spaces. I'm interested in US nuclear policy in our decision makings, particularly what happens after the decisions are made. I'm very curious how US policies affect small communities overseas that we don't think about. So after we do these airstrikes or these like bombings or what have you, that US loves so much and that we're such a powerhouse, we forget about those communities who are now left with unsafe drinking water, or they don't have access to food, or like can they rebuild, or I'm like what's that community structure now like after we've kind of come in and shown like US strength and then we just leave. And so I'm interested in how US policies affect smaller communities. So it's kind of what I plan to go in post grad school.
And what inspired that that focus?
Okay, honestly, it was the last election. I'm not even gonna hold you. I love politics. Like I love science, but I also love politics. And kind of seeing how big of a hot mess our US government is, especially in terms of like science and science knowledge, and even like this whole like coronavirus pandemic and how there's so much information. People don't really believe scientists anymore. And it's like, it's kind of a scary thought to me. So I figure the solution is we'll have more scientists go into politics and have more of an influential role in that. So it's like, I see myself as being part of the solution. So it's like, I'm a scientist. That's what I do for a living. I would love to go in the spaces where like, you know, important monumental decisions are being made. And it's like, hey, just so you know, this is the consequences behind what you're about to do. And I want you to know before you sign off on this. So I see myself being an advocate in those spaces through my science.
That's incredible. You know, I've always believed that our government needs a more diverse background in terms of the people that represent us. Like it's not just lawyers or, oh, okay, I went to law school and now I'm the governor or whatever. We need teachers, we need scientists, we need people that actually understand, you know, our society in general, not just one way. I think that is an incredible focus and goal, and I hope that you are able to achieve it and keep on focused on it.
Fingers crossed I get there.
So Veeshan, tell us about your PhD program. You're, like you said, you're at the end of it now. So how's that journey been and what has your focus been?
Yeah, it's been crazy thinking about it. I can't wait to be over with this, honestly. It's been so long and nerve-wracking and mind-boggling. But yeah, it's been also at the same time really awesome. Like I've grown so much as a human being. I've met so many amazing people. So yeah, my PhD is in physics. Um, so I'm kind of like Tracy. So Tracy is doing her PhD in physics, but her advisor is in a different field, right? So my advisor is in atmospheric science. So I study basically the physics of the atmosphere. So when you do a PhD program in physics, you have to take your typical physics courses, your electromagnetism, your classical mechanics, your thermodynamics, your quantum mechanics, your statistical mechanics, your mathematical methods. But then you branch off into whatever field, right? So you can go into nuclear physics and that becomes your research, or you can go into laser optics physics or solid state condensed matter physics, or yeah, it goes on, right? Astrophysics, but I study atmospheric physics. So I study physics related to the flows in the atmosphere. So you can think of the atmosphere just like the ocean, how it flows about and it moves about. The atmosphere does the same thing, except you can't really see it, right? Because it's these small gas particles. But then you can take those you can take those kinds of fundamental thoughts that the atmosphere is some flow, it's a fluid, right? And then you can use Newton's laws. So if you remember F equals ma from physics, Newton's laws, and then you can use your conservation of energy equation, if you remember that, and then some other equations like your ideal gas law, and you can take those equations and you can model the atmosphere. And those equations obviously are very complicated, but there's familiar things in there like the Coriolis force, things related to the rotation of the Earth. And then if you solve those equations, that's how you predict the weather, right? That's how you have weather prediction. That's how you can look at your phone and it tells you what the weather is like tomorrow. So
Wow.
that's what NOAA and the National Weather Service does. So they fund my PhD, where I study basically what I just described as the field of geophysical fluid dynamics. So I study one aspect of geophysical fluid dynamics, which is atmospheric blocking. That's anticyclones in the atmosphere. So after you take all your classes, you then just do pure scientific research. So you conduct experiments, you collect data, you ask questions, you answer questions, you read papers, you collect evidence, and then you share your findings and publish scientific papers. So then that's what stage of my PhD that I'm in.
Yeah, and you mentioned that at a younger age you were just interested. That's kind of where your passion started from, just even just being outside and just looking at the stars. Is that part of your inspiration of your focus?
Nah, I think like one unfortunate thing for the program that I'm in is that I originally wanted to do astrophysics, like what I described earlier,
Hmm.
but the way that it works is that you can't work with an advisor unless they have the money to fund you throughout your PhD. So your tuition is to be paid for, and you have to get at least like $25,000 a year as a living stipend, right? So the professor will fund you for that through grants that they receive from, organizations like NSF or NASA. So all the astrophysics people from my cohort didn't have money to take me, or maybe they didn't want to take me. I don't know. I'm not going to be petty. Probably they didn't have money. But then I talked to one professor from my undergrad that I knew, the one that I'm working with now, Jimmy Booth, and yeah, so he had a cool opportunity. It seemed like some really cool, interesting science. If I couldn't do what I wanted to originally do, I was like, okay, let me just develop skills that I know will be useful and professionally. And this work that I do now really involves coding, so and programming and like big data analysis and things like that. So that drew me to it, and then it turned out actually to be very interesting to me. So it worked out.
That's good. I mean, that's what we want. We want it to work out. One of the things I love about what you're also doing, Veeshan, is that other than you focus on your program, you're also focusing on bringing younger people into the sciences. A lot of the things that you've been doing outside of school is working with young kids and mentoring them, teaching them. How did you get involved in those type of programs?
um, You know, I'll just be completely honest with you. When I was in college, I got into a little bit of trouble, so I had to do some community service. And then one of my boys was running a soccer program in Harlem. I think actually I was volunteering a little bit before because he wanted me to referee some games. So I started volunteering and doing community service with that. And then I mean, yeah, then I really kind of fell in love with it. I started doing that. I started working actually at a program in Harlem, New York Math Academy, and they actually work with a lot of kids like African families and immigrants from Africa. And I began tutoring, working with them. Yeah, and that really got me interested working with kids, and then just seeing some of the opportunities that kids that go to school like in the Bronx and Harlem didn't have, from kids who live in the same state, right? Go to public school just like them, like they nowhere near the opportunities we had upstate, and seeing that and just it was so appalling to me. And then yeah, just knowing that some things got me interested in science, like seeing cool science things when I was a kid really got me interested, and just wanting to share that was really the driving force, I think.
So from trouble to actually being in love with helping others.
Yeah. Yeah, everything
Um,
happens for a reason, I guess.
there's always a reason for everything, so sometimes our hand just has to be forced for us to guide us in where we're supposed to be headed to. So Tracy, I know that I think during your first year you also actually interacted with students who may be involved in science in your school. I think it was called Ping. Is that what it's called? How
Yes.
did that come to be? Were you part of the driving force, or did you just collaborate with the program?
Sorry, my cat is in the. Sorry. Okay. So actually, the creator for Ping is the physicist inspiring the next generation. He was my department chair at Hampton for I went to undergrad, and so he's actually now my advisor in grad school, which is pretty cool.
Oh wow!
And so he actually one summer he asked me, he was bringing up some high school students to MSU for about 2 weeks just to get some experience like working in a lab. I'm so sorry, my cat. Where's that? I get some experience, and so he needed some like undergraduate mentors to kind of like hang out with him and like be a good role model for the 2 weeks. So he asked me to come up, and I was like, "Oh, sure, free trip, why not?" Right? And then I got there, and I was like, "These students were brilliant," and I was so impressed by how much they love science and how they were so curious. And I was like, it kind of inspired me to be more curious, to be honest with you. And so for that connection, I kind of stayed on. And so pretty awesome. We just got approved for an additional grant. I think it's through the DOE, and they're going to fund us to bring in now undergrad HBCU students to MSU this summer and throughout the next school year to have more to do more mentorship and exposure as well. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting. I guess that part leads me to one of the things I really want to talk about is how do we get more people involved in the sciences? You're doing it through mentorship, you're doing it through collaborating with undergrad students, but how do we do more?
That's a big question you're asking. I think there's so many different ways to do that. I can speak to maybe how I think I can contribute, which is through mentorship. Of course, there's also teaching. There's like classroom exposure, and there's also teaching outside of the classroom, what I think I can do. So I think just giving students the opportunity to come and see or providing the opportunity for students to be exposed to things, which includes money. So I think maybe increasing the funding that's being funneled into some of these programs, increasing the advertising for it. Because a lot of times the issue is students, it's not that they don't want to do it. It's just they either don't know about it or they can't afford it. So it's like if we can tackle those two things, I think the amount of minorities fall into sciences will definitely increase by a large magnitude. So I say money and exposure, probably my two biggest thoughts on that.
How about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm probably about to go off right now, but Opie, listen, I when you sent those questions in the email, I took the time to prepare. Like this is like probably the thing that I'm most passionate about in life, I think. But I think, yeah, definitely as Tracy said, is that you most important thing is exposure. I think a lot of the times kids don't realize, or kids especially in underserved communities don't realize that there is success to be found in science, and there's careers that actually come out of it, that you can take care of your mama, or get your place of your own and support your life, have the nice car, the nice clothes, right? They think sometimes that they just need a mic or a ball or to be on a corner. As cliche and stupid as it sounds, I think they just don't even realize that. So exposing them. So ways of doing that over at City College. Let me rep that real quick. City College, big up to all my CUNY people. Public school the whole way, New York State, baby. Um, yeah, so at City College, we've organized a lot of events where we work. City College is in Harlem, right on 135th and Amsterdam. So we organize all kinds of events where we bring kids to City College. And this started because I saw that we had like a bunch of physics demonstrations in the basement that rarely got used. And I was like, it'd be cool to show some kids in the neighborhood what this is about. So we started bringing kids over to the college, in person when outside was opened up. So this started like 5 years, 5, 6, 7 years ago when I was in undergrad. Bringing them there and just showing them cool hands-on science experiences where they could actually see science up close, not just read about it or watch a video about it, but see it and do it with their hands, right? Expose them to things like levitating trains, superconductors, Tesla coils, clouds in a bottle, gravitation experiments, like all these cool kind of hands-on activities, to just expose them to it and show them that science isn't just a class you take in school. It's a fun thing that you interact with every day in reality, right? Um, and then I think, you know, just like Tracy was saying earlier, just show them people doing science that look like them. I was in my class the other day. I heard like this horror thing that this dude said. We are talking about like how you should dress in class, and this guy's training to be a science teacher, and he's like, I try to be like the typical science dude, like collar, low key, just like trying to fit that whole criteria of just like old white guy in a lab coat, basically. And that was just like a horror thing. But I think just showing kids that people that look like them, people that they can identify with, people from the same socioeconomic backgrounds, ethnic background, whatever it is, can be scientists. Normal people can be cool and be a scientist. You don't have to be like some super geek nerd, right? You can just be a regular person and you could be a scientist, or you could be an engineer or a medical doctor, whatever it is. And yeah, I think even besides all that, like probably the most important thing is mentoring, having people there for you that are cheering you on and showing you pathways and guiding you to success. So Tracy and I, we actually work together to lead the efforts in building an awesome mentoring program, working with undergraduate students, mentoring kids, high school students, middle school students in the Bronx and Harlem. So yeah, Tracy could probably tell you some more about that, but that's a really awesome aspect as well, mentoring.
When did you both start collaborating and working in the mentoring field?
So I think I met you last fall. I forget which month it was. I know I met you through FARA. So I'm in an organization called National Society of Black Physicists, and I'm on their student council. So it's a council of undergrad and grad students who represent the interests of students within this large organization. And so FARA, I'm interested in K through 12 programming. And so FARA connected me with V, which is through our program with Harlem Gallery Science, where we help mentor middle school and high school students. That's how I met him. And so my role was as a mentor leader. So I kind of help with programming and kind of organizations, and also helping the mentors with their mentees. So it's kind of like my role in that program.
And one of the things that, you guys talk about mentorship, but a lot of people, how do we create more access to those mentors? If we talk about disadvantaged societies and places where there are no mentors, there are no teachers that look like you, are concerned with how well you do. If you're in those type of communities, how do we reach out to those people? How do we get more exposure? Because we know that's important, but how do we get that exposure to those communities?
Yeah, it was like what Tracy was saying earlier. It's about funding. There's not, people are just like all talk, like they'll post, let me post something on social media, Black Lives Matter, and that's that's it. But there's not
Right.
enough funding going towards it. Like just from, we run this, this mentoring program is the best thing ever, honestly. We like we have undergraduate students who come from the same communities, come from the same backgrounds as these kids, working with them, meeting with them every single week, taking time of their life every single week, not only to talk about like, the typical stuff like academics and science pathways and careers and all that stuff, but also just like having someone there to build a relationship with you and just like be excited to see you, or just know about what's going on in your life and give you advice, and have an adult to talk to besides your parents. Like that's a powerful thing. Forget about like all the career and academic support, but we're doing all that, right? We have workshops for everybody where we do things like career day. Tracy gave an awesome presentation about how to be a good student, right? We had someone who's a fashion designer, Noelle Veloz, came in and talked to them about starting their own business, right? So exposing them to these opportunities. But the thing is that all that costs money, right? And so for example, for this program, what was it? The budget for the whole program was like, for this semester was like $8,000 or $10,000. And in order to do that, we had to raise all the money ourselves. There was
Mm.
no, corporation or, organization, like, here's $1 million, here's $20,000 to run your program. There's no politician who gave us money to do that. We had to start a GoFundMe, and we raised it all ourselves. So it was good that, regular people are able to fund that. But I think, people in politics, people up there in the corporate world also need to step in and do more. And it's not just, giving money and throwing money into these programs that work with 200 kids, but it's not really building community, or, kind of brainwashing them to act how society wants them without embracing their own culture, right? Put it in programs like ours, which are small and really build that sense of community and family, right? That's probably the most important thing. So I think people really need to put their money where their mouth is. That's the first step.
Absolutely. I think what you just mentioned is so important. That feeling of community, of actually trusting the people and the leaders in your community, feeling like they care about you as a person, even regardless of whatever field you want to go to career wise. Do you even consider me a person? And do you consider me someone that's going to be a productive person in this community? That's definitely an important part. How were you able to continue or provide mentorship during this time where you couldn't see these children face to face? Everything was online, everything was virtual. How were you able to sustain that type of community and trust?
You want to take that one, Tracy?
Well, I mean, like you said, it's all online. So I think Zoom has been our best friend. All of our meetings are through Zoom. We have cohort events, which I absolutely love. So it's about every 3 to 4 weeks, we'll have events, as we mentioned, where we'll bring all of our students and our mentors together to build community, basically. And we'll discuss different topics, such as being a student or building your own business. And then we try to be as hands-on as possible. Granted, with this whole COVID thing, but most of our mentors are like throughout the country. So it's like they're mentoring students in New York, but we have people in different states all over. I think it's pretty powerful. So granted, COVID has been, I think, a bit of a challenge. It's also been a great opportunity to diversify mentorship and what's possible for some of these students, I think. So I think honestly, it's been a stepping stone for us in our program that we're building. And I'm excited to see grow in this online platform that we have.
Yeah.
How many children are you mentoring? Like how many children are in your program?
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback a little bit off what Tracy was saying, but for that question, we have 20 kids in the program and we have 10 mentors. So each mentor is paired. So with regards to the structure of the program, there's college student / graduate student mentors. So we have 10 of them and they're from colleges all over the US. And each one of those mentors is paired with 2 students, a middle schooler and a high schooler.
Okay.
Right? And that's the structure. That's, that's the nucleus. Your mentor and your 2 mentees, those are the people that meet every week. But then every 3 or 4 weeks when we have these cohort events, that's when everybody gets together. And then not only that, groups of 2 or 3 mentors, they are then paired with a mentor leader. So I'm a mentor leader, Tracy's a mentor leader. We have 2 other awesome mentor leaders, shout out Farah and Milena, and then Damanje from last semester. So, there's this whole vertical model, this chain of mentoring that's going on. But you asked about, keeping people engaged in the virtual world, right? So that's the idea from the beginning. So this was all thought up by the president of the National Society of Black Physicists, who was also the executive director of Harlem Gallery of Science, the 2 organizations that made this program. And his name is Stefan Alexander, Dr. Stefan Alexander. And he's a professor at Brown University, but he's also a regular kid from the Bronx. He actually, I literally thought I was the only Trinidadian physicist ever until I met this dude. And then I met him and I'm like, oh, wow, that like changed my whole life. Like, I didn't think I was ever smart enough to become a professor, but when I met him, I was like, oh, wow, maybe I could actually do that too. Because he actually is from close by the same neighborhood where I used to live in the Bronx as a kid. So that I found very interesting. But he thought of this whole idea of a virtual mentorship program. And I think like to keep people engaged is really, we have to be really clever and do a lot of cool, innovative things, but we did it and we show that it's actually possible. And it's, just like as Tracy said, to keep it engaging, the mentors meet with their mentees every week for at least 30 minutes. And also just to make it not too much of a stressful thing. So, say a kid has a lot of stuff going on and they can't meet every week, they need to meet every 2 weeks, but being open to that and, not putting too much stress on them because everybody's under a lot of stress right now. I think also, at our cohort events, we try to keep it funky and fresh. We play music that, from playlists that the kids suggest right in the beginning. We do meditation. We have a great guy, Brian Simmons, that comes in and gives us meditation every time. We keep it engaging. It's not just you sitting there for an hour listening to someone talk. It's you being in groups, communicating with other people, actively engaging. And also providing opportunities and including kids in what we're doing. So as we're planning all this out, we include the kids in the planning process so they can take accountability and be stakeholders in what we're doing. Some things that we saw, like, with kids that were struggling to show up, is that if we include them more in the process and put more responsibility on them, which sounds like the opposite thing you should do, it actually got them more engaged and more appreciative of the program. So, we have this one kid from Senegal, Sharif, who's doing all kinds of internships this summer that we helped him get, getting paid internships, earning college credit. Another girl, Sarah, who just got into this program with entrepreneurship that she's been super interested in. So although, we're a STEM program, we're really trying to expose them and give them opportunities, and they really love and feed off that. And the same goes for the mentors.
I was just about to ask how you gauge your success in the mentorship, and you just mentioned a few. Do you see these children being a part of the program even as they go out and they branch out? Will they be also part of your mentorship program as it grows?
What do you think, Tracy?
I hope so. Like that would be a dream, right? I think to be able to track our students' progress to post our program and see them in undergrad and maybe grad school or career-wise. I think keeping in contact with them is really important because we want to build this family community environment. I think also maybe trying to recruit someone back. So once they're undergrads, they're kind of on their feet, having them come back to be mentors as well. So kind of having that cycle happening. But definitely I think be a goal of ours, once our students progress.
Yeah, I think, you never graduate from your family. This is a family, right? So even Sharif, for example, he said that he's graduating this year, but he said, next year he wants to be a mentor or he wants to still be in the program. So we actually gave them the option at the end of the fall because this was the first year, right? So this was really a pilot. And some of the kids, they had attendance issues. So we're like, do they really want to be here? And, out of the 20 kids, when we asked them, do you want to continue in the spring? 18 of them said yes, right? So obviously, like, they want to continue being in there. They see the value that it brings to their life. And we just want to continue that. And then also use it as a model for other places, right? Not just Harlem and the Bronx, but why can't we use it in Brooklyn? Why can't we use it in Compton, right? Why can't we use it in Miami, Chicago? So yeah, definitely continue with the family that we have and then grow it, add more members.
Branch out.
Yeah. I mean, a side note, I think this also speaks to the question you had earlier about how do we increase mentors. I think this is how we do it. So like we're mentoring the next mentors who will eventually go out and maybe create their own program. So they'll see how great this was for them and they'll put their own spin onto it to where we are. So it's kind of like planting little seeds now. And then I think I'm excited to see how it flourishes. So I think even our program now will contribute to more exposure and mentors in these communities moving forward by our students.
Absolutely. That is very true. I think a lot of this has to do with having patience too. Sometimes we want this instant, like, okay, I put all this work, everything has to be perfect now, but everything takes time building and see where it grows. And if you do it right, as you both are, and if you're patient with it, it's going to be bigger than you could have ever imagined.
Mm-hmm.
What have you both learned personally? Like, how have you improved personally through creating this program? What have you learned?
I know for me, I think the biggest skill I've gained is collaboration. I think these are like soft skills. They're important to be successful wherever you go. And so again, I used to be a student where I like to like work alone. Like I can get done myself. Like I don't trust other people to get done what they're going to get done. And I think working with V and our other mentor leaders and seeing, even watching how they work and watching their work ethic has inspired and influenced my own. And then collaborating with them has also improve my ability to collaborate with like my own lab back at school or like my own like other things I'm working on. So I think collaboration and just like a work ethic I've learned from witnessing other students like me do what they do. So
oh, well, that makes me so happy. I'm so glad. I'm so glad, yo. I can't wait to see what you become, yo, honestly. Yeah, for me, I think definitely like the project management aspects of it has been sometimes nerve-wracking, but also really good to gain those skills. Fundraising experience, like we really created our own campaign where we funded this whole program ourselves. Like now we have that on our resume, boom. Social media, right? We ran this whole social media campaign. Yeah, so there's a lot of like professional wise, I think there's a lot of skills that came along with it. One thing that I value a lot also is just, of course, seeing the kids grow, like that always feels good. It also has made me a lot more empathetic to things that people are dealing with. And like, we did a whole workshop on what is it, cultural sensitivity and microaggressions and implicit bias. And that was very eye-opening for me. I think, we live in a very masculine world where people are thought to need to be acting like a macho man, like nothing affects them, like, and just realize it's okay to have feelings. And that comes from interacting with all different kinds of people. It made me more empathetic. Like one kid, for example, I called him up during Ramadan and it was like 11 a.m. and I was just joking with him. I was like, oh damn, you still sleeping, bro? You're supposed to be up grinding. But he was like, nah, it's Ramadan, so I try to sleep in because then you're gonna get hungry. And I was like, okay, that's something I'm insensitive to. Like, just being more aware of people's culture and, working with very powerful, driven women like Tracy and Farah and Milena in the program has really been eye-opening for me as well. And just like, seeing that kind of environment, because I'm just used to seeing men in leadership roles, right? So being able to help empower them and help empower students as well has been really awesome, honestly. And people don't gotta donate money to us, but just see us and just see us, tell people about what we're doing. If you like what we're doing, give us a like, give us a comment, share what we're doing, because you don't know, you might share it with your homie and they really are into it. And so, just expose people to it, I think is the most important thing, honestly. So we'll give you all the links. We have some cool videos we can share as well. But yeah, this program is the best. It's a game changer, honestly.
Impressed with what you're both doing in bringing more exposure. I think that's pretty much the goal here. We need more funding and we need more exposure to just reach a more diverse group. And I think what you hit on is that if you don't know something, then you're not gonna understand, like you're not gonna pursue it. If I'm unaware of all these things that you've brought up, if I'm unaware of how science is important to my daily life, if I'm unaware of those things, there's no way that I can see myself being in that environment or how important it is. And we just need more of it. We need more exposure of it. So I want to thank you both for enlightening me today and enlightening my listeners as well. I really appreciate it. Tracy, where can we reach out to you and find out about your journey and your PhD program and keep in touch with you?
Well, I stay on Twitter. On Twitter, I tweet my entire life. I tweet everything from grad school to mental health awareness to my cats. So you can find me on Twitter at the Tracy Simone. That's the Tracy Tracy Simone Simone. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram too. Same name.
About your YouTube, you also have a YouTube channel.
Oh my God. Okay, this YouTube channel, I'm struggling, y'all. It's just like I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with it. I'm also on YouTube. It's what's my YouTube name? Oh, Becoming Dr. Edwards. I'm trying to find my little niche in the world. So you can watch me journey through life.
I definitely love your honesty. I've watched your vlogs and you
Really?
are, yeah, you definitely just, you put it out there. So I really appreciate that. The honesty is very important.
Yeah, I cried on my living room floor to the entire internet over grad school. But you know what? There is strength in
for a reason. Not just there's
yeah.
a reason behind it.
Yeah, honestly, I do it because I get so frustrated watching other scientists move as if this is like easy or normal. And it's like the things that we go through to be successful, it's hard. It's a struggle. And I think there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm having a hard time. Can someone please help me? And someone will. And it's
right.
like, I think there's strength in just being honest with people. So it's like, I think it's possible, but I think it's important to share the realities of this journey. And mine happens to be grad school.
Right. Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's definitely something I learned from Tracy, is just that it's okay to, not be okay sometimes and be a human being. You don't got to be a tough guy.
Yeah.
Every single, and that's, just leads to more problems, I think. So it's dope.
So how about you, V? How do we keep in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm trying to, trying to get my social media popping a little bit more. I got to devote more time, but you could check me out on Instagram and Twitter, bod_man bishi. I'll type it out for you so you can put the link in. And then you can also check out my website, vthescientist.com. Yeah, and just I'll give you my email. People can reach out to me on my website too. So that's a good way to connect. I'll always answer you if you have any questions about, being part of the sciences, getting involved. Like, definitely reach out. See me on Instagram and Twitter. Add me. I'll add you back. And yeah, just trying to spread positivity, man. Please reach out to me and I'll reach out to you, and we'll all, create a more positive world.
Absolutely. Thank you both for joining me on today's talk. Thank you everyone for listening. And until next time, bye.
Peace.
Thank you guys.